way young. Taking like a Indian Shida, Timabu, Tonkabu, Nidabu, Tijabu, Papa. Oh, Baru Common, but I'm a Migo Sata, and it is a king party. Baju she was later. Good word, young and me. All the women are Baju she was the name of the king. Yeah, exactly.
Today we have 2 leftover questions from a previous week. Out of these 2, the first one is from Reverend K. Dhammananda. What is the benefit of noting, sitting and touching? I found when noting, sitting, touching, when rising start again, it seems very far away and I need more effort to observe the rising falling. So I thought maybe my focus was not strong enough. So instead, noting, sitting, touching. When there is no movement of the belly, I stay with the focus into the belly and note the sensations that are there, for example, slight tautness, pulsation, calmness, peace, etc. Then rising, falling appear again and easy to focus. Now we start with this, the first part of the question. What is the benefit of noting, sitting and touching? Before Sayadaw answers this particular portion of the question, he would like to ask the yogi, what is the benefit of noting, rising, falling?
Answer?
Please answer.
By noting, rising, falling, our mind becomes like a focus on our mind, and then remove what's hindrance, and then develop concentration, then finally wisdom comes.
ဒီဖောင်းဖုံးပိန်မှုတော့မှတ်ခြင်းအချင်းသိချိန်တတ်ကမှုရပါလေ
Yeah, me. Who much by Jesus she the bed? Can you but about Jesus she the do a me her? Open my by Jesus she was the me when she knew.
အဲ့ဒါပြန်ပြင်လာပါစိတ်ဖောင်းဖုံးပိန်မှုမှတ်တဲ့ကစိတ်ချိန်တတ်ကမှုရှိပါလေနောက်တော့နိဗ္ဗာန်နဲ့ကင်းစင်သွားပြီးတော့စိတ်စူးစိုက်မှုရလာပါလေနောက်ဆုံးမှကျတော့ဉာဏ်ဖြစ်လာပါလေ
ဘာပဲမှလည်းငင်းသင်ချပေါ်တဲ့အာရုံမှတ်ရတာဒီလေးဖြစ်နေတယ်ဒီလေးကစိတ်ကိုပြိတာနေပြီးတော့ကာကွယ်ပေးရပါကာကွယ်ဆိုတော့လောကနဲ့နောက်ချက်မလာခင်ကျူရင်ကာကွယ်ရတယ်နောက်ချက်ပေါ်လာလို့ရှိရင်ဖြစ်လို့လည်းဒီပြချရတယ်အဲဒီလည်းမရဘူး ပြင်နဲ့အာရုံဖြစ်တဲ့ကောင်းတဲ့ဟိုသတိထားနေတယ်ဆိုရတော့မှနေတယ်တတိလို့ရင်ဖြစ်နေတဲ့ကိလေသာတတိရှိနေတော့ဖြစ်ခွင့်ရကိလေသာဖြစ်မှလည်းပြီးတော့ကာဝေမှုတွေပေါ့ဒါကြီးသုတ္တပြရတယ်ကျုပ်ကတော့ပြန်ပြရတယ်ဒါလေးဒီစိတ်ကကောင်းတော့လို့ဆိုတော့ဘယ်သမားကြီးပြင်နေတယ်ဆိုတာကြာလို့ပါပဲတိုင်ကြည့်ရတယ်ပဲကျိုးရအာရုံတွေကျိုးရအာရုံတွေပြုဖြစ်တဲ့အခါဒီကကြည့်တယ်မှာမရှိဘူးပြီးတော့ဖြစ်မှာတယ်ဒီရှိနေဒီကနေ့လည်းရှိတော့ပြီးတော့ဖြစ်ပေါ်ရတယ်ကျေရတဲ့လူနာတွေထိုင်ကြည့်မှပါကြည့်ရှိပါတယ်ဆိုတာဒီလိုပြော
So when we note whatever objects that arise, at the moment of arising, we develop mindfulness. In other words, this mindfulness will protect kilesa from entering our mind. In other words, it will protect our mind from receiving kilesa. Before we get these troubles, mindfulness will prevent this situation. Now when the troubles come up, with mindfulness we can reject these disturbances. That is why when we are noting the main object of rising and falling, kilesa cannot enter our mind. Kilesa does not have a chance to come up. So when we know the situation, we have to protect our mind by noting the object that comes up. And if kilesa does arise, we have to note them away. If we can continue noting like this, we can develop concentration, we can develop insight. Similarly, when we note sitting touching, the sitting touching becomes an object. If we do not note sitting touching, kilesa can enter our mind. If we note sitting touching, we have protection from kilesa. Kilesa does not have a chance to arise. So we have to understand this. So when you ask this question, what is the benefit of noting, sitting and touching, Sayadaw has to give this answer.
ဝိပဿနာရှိရမှာဂိတ်ဒီတတ်မှတ်ခြင်းနေရာမှာရှိတယ်။ဒီနေရာမှာကတော့မရှိလျင်မရှိလျင်ပြည့်လျင်ရှိလျင်ရှိလျင်ပြည့်လျင်ဒီချက်ပေါ်တဲ့အာယုသူတို့ဖြစ်ခဲ့လိုက်ပြီးတော့ရှိရင်ကိလေသာတွေမှာဖြစ်မှာစိတ်ချင်းကိလေသာတွေမှာတောက်ချောက်ရှိလို့ရှိရင်တောက်ချောက်ရှိတဲ့ကောကုလိုဒီလိုဝင်နေတာအကန့်အသတ်မရှိတောက်ချောက်ရှိတဲ့ကောဟာဖြစ်ပြီးတော့ဒါဝင်ဆိုင်ပါဘူးနောက်ကျပြီးနေတာတွေပဲဝင်လို့ရအောင်ဒီပြုနေတဲ့ဟာတွေကဝင်လို့ရအောင်ဒါလိုပါပဲရှိလို့ကြည့်တော့ကိလေသာတွေအင်းကြီးတွေအင်းကျဲတွေအဲဒီမှာထားရဲ့ကိလေသာတွေတော့ဒီထားရဲ့ကိလေသာတွေဒီကဘောတဲ့အာရုံကိုဘလို့မှတ်ရမှာမမှတ်ရင်ကိလေသာမှာပဲမှတ်ရင်ကိလေသာဖြစ်တယ်အဲဒီရှင်းတယ်
In Vipassana meditation, there is a niyama or saying, it says like this, if you do not contemplate kilesa will enter our mind stream. If we contemplate, we can be free from kilesa. If we do not note, it will be like a door without a guard. When there is no guard at the door or at the gate, anybody can go through this gate without any sort of control. If there is a guard at the gate, the guard will be checking and he will be allowing in only those that are beneficial. He will not admit those who can give trouble. So similarly, when we note, we have a protection like the guard, and we can be free from impurities of the mind. If we had mindfulness, kilesa does not have a chance to arise. If we do not have mindfulness, or if we do not note, kilesa will arise. That is very clear.
Yogi in the Lumiko told me that I see Mother Kama, the Lumati. Mother Bati was a Jabu, and I will say to her. So much time who she never sees a video. Mamma. This is a Mamma Bati. I believe people Chinese here, a lot of people are $10, $10, $2, $3. That's your yes. People do. She never sees a video, Mother Bati. They take a phone dealer. I will deal that. Down in the thing, in the loan, in the food, in the I'm to Mother in Jari Taiwan, in Nagasia, Mamma found the money in Navadi. That is Jabu. I don't get down.
Instead of asking what is the benefit of noting, sitting and touching, if only the yogi reports to the meditation teacher while he notes sitting, touching, what does he come to know? For example, does he note the sitting with aiming and focusing? Can he note the sitting? Or he cannot know the sitting? If we can note, he should tell further to the meditation teacher whether he experiences, he sees the form of the sitting posture or the manner of the sitting posture, or does he experience stiffness, tension, heat, movement, etc. So yogis are told to report these things to the meditation teacher. Again, when he notes touching, he has to report whether or not he can note a touching with aiming and focusing. If he says he can note the touching, what does he come to know? For example, the form of the touching point, or the manner of touching, or does he come to know stiffness, tension, heat, etc. So, when the yogi is noting sitting, touching, he has to report to the teacher if he notes according to the instruction given by the meditation teacher. If the yogi can note, he must tell further to the meditation teacher what does he come to know. And this is the duty of the yogi.
မှတ်နေတော့မှဖောင်းပင်ပြန်ပေါ်လာပါပြီဒီတင်ကြချက်ကိုထောက်လို့ရှိရင်ထိုက်ကြည့်မှမှပြင်ဖောင်းပင်ကိုငုတ်သွားတယ်ဆိုတဲ့အဓိပ္ပာယ်သူတို့မှတ်နေကြတော့ဖောင်းပင်ကိုပေါ်လာရင်အဲ့ဒါမကောင်းဘူးပေါ့ထိုင်မှတ်နေရင်ဖောင်းပေါ်လာမယ်ဘယ်လိုကြည့်ဖို့ပေါ်လာပင်ကိုပေါ်လာစိတ်မှတ်နေရင်ဖောင်းပင်ကိုတစ်ခုပေါ်လာမယ်ဆိုတော့အာရုံရောနေတယ်အဲ့ဒါမျိုးတော့ရှိတယ်အဲ့ဒီမျိုးကလည်းပဲထွေးနေတယ်ဒီမျိုးအခြေအနေထောက်လို့ရှိရင်တော့တိုက်တိမှတ်နေတော့ဖောင်းပင်ပြန်ပေါ်လာပါတယ်တိုက်တိမမှတ်ခင်ကဖောင်းပင်ကြောက်သွားပြီအထင်ရှားတော့ဘူးဆိုတော့ဆက်ရောက်သွားဒါကြောင့်တိုက်တိကြောက်မှတ်ရပါတယ်ဒီလိုတော့ဖြစ်တယ်အဲ့ဒီမျိုးကလည်းဖြေရတယ်ဆိုချက်တယ်မျိုးလို့မေးတာမရှင်းတော့ဒီလိုပဲဖြေလည်းပဲမတည်ရဖြစ်တတ်ပါတယ်ဒီကောင်ပြန်ပြီးတော့ဒီမျိုးကောင်းတယ်
So he says, when noting, sitting, touching, rising, falling, reappear, does he mean that before noting, sitting, touching, rising, falling was not there? Or rising, falling disappeared before he started to note, sitting, touching? So, does he mean to say that while he is noting, sitting, he sees rising? Or does he want to say that while he is noting touching, he sees the falling? If this is so, the question becomes very confusing. It is mixed. So, while he was noting sitting, touching, did rising, falling appear again? Or before he noted sitting, touching, there was no rising, falling anymore? So Seattle thinks that before he noted sitting, touching, rising, falling was not there. Therefore, since the question is confusing, it is a little difficult. Seattle is in a tight position to answer the question. It will be more appropriate to rewrite the question. So what is it exactly? Rising, falling disappeared before you note sitting, touching? Oh, my God. If this is so, you have to rephrase the question like that. I was noting rising, falling disappeared, so I noted sitting, touching to be in a sequence. So if you say rising, falling disappear, do they disappear slowly or do they disappear abruptly? Now, if you say that it disappears while you are noting rising, falling, it is not natural.
First, slowly it becomes just a movement, and then finally I couldn't catch this movement, so I use my hand. Even though I couldn't find it, after some time it's slowly here.
တကယ်ပင်မွေးလာပါတယ်ပင်မွေးတော့ဖောင်းပင်မမြင်တော့ပါဘူး။ဒါကြောင့်ဒီဘိုက်ပေါ်မှာလက်တင်ပြီးတော့မှတ်ပါတယ်။နောက်ကျတော့ဖောင်းပင်မတွေ့တော့ပါဘူး။ So when there was no rising falling, what did you see? What was there?
I mentioned there is a concentration of blood sensation.
Oh. Slight tautness pulsation. I think that I don't have that, don't that, I don't agent on it. Let
it get it at Jama,
So before you put your palm on the belly, did you experience the sensation, tautness, pulsation, calmness, peace? Or did you experience this after you put your palm? If you say that rising falling disappeared slowly, it means that rising falling was still there. So when you report to your teacher during the interview, you have to be able to tell him in a clear manner how you note and what do you experience. Only when you can report this clearly to the meditation teacher, the teacher can give you corrective measures. Kalana Yahutu, but the she 2 years, we looked at the other 2 years. Yes, it has shaved 2 years. When I think we have found the yes, in the Nika, when rising falling become subtle, you have to put lots of effort. Aiming. You have to increase your energy of aiming and focusing. And you have to increase to push your mind to the object. It is like looking at an object from a distance. You will not be able to see the object clearly. So what you do, you go closer to the object. So when you come to a suitable distance from the object, you will be able to see the object clearly. Similarly, when rising falling become subtle, you have to increase your energy. And when the noting mind becomes close to rising for when your noting mind becomes close to this subtle rising falling, you will see that rising falling becomes prominent again.
6တော့တတ်သိဆိုတာ6လို့ရှိရင်တတ်ရရတယ်ဒီကလေးကနည်းနည်းအရင်6နေလို့ရှိတယ်နောက်ထပ်အရင်တူတူတခါရတယ်ရှိတယ်
One should note sitting, touching only when there is no more rising, falling. Or sometimes when you are noting rising, falling, there can be gaps in between rising and falling. So in cases like this, you inject sitting or touching in between rising, falling. Sometimes what happens is, there is a gap. In Burmese, we say that if something becomes loose, you have to put the wedge in between. In other words, if there is a gap, you have to fill the gap. If there is a gap between rising, falling, you fill the gap by noting, sitting or touching. Sometimes when the noting becomes little scattered, not close enough, then you have to increase the number of objects like sitting, touching, rising, falling, or sometimes sitting, touching, like that.
အဲ့ပြီးတော့ဗရဏဖုံးပင်ဖို့ကိုမျိုးနဲ့မှတ်ရတာပေါက်လာပြီးပိန်လာပြီးပေါက်လာတော့တစ်ချက်တည်းအကြမ်းမရှိဘဲနဲ့မှတ်နေလို့ရှိဒီလိုမျိုးပဲမှတ်တော့ဒါရပါတယ်ပြောတာအဲ့လိုမှတ်နေတဲ့အခါမှာသမာဓိအဲ့ဒါလောက်ရှိတာလို့ပြောတော်တော်လေးရှိတယ်အသိဉာဏ်လေးတွေလည်းသိကြဖြစ်လာတယ်ပြန်နိုင်မှတဲ့အာရုံကဒီလိုသင်ဖို့ကြရတာအထူးသဖြင့်အနာမနာမှတ်တဲ့ပုံစံတွေရှိလို့ရှိဖို့ဘုရားကြီးသင်လို့ကြရတာဝိနည်းဖက်လေးနဲ့စနေတဲ့ပေါင်းပြီးဟောလည်းပဲဒီမှာဝိနည်းဖက်လေးသင်ဖို့တော့ဒီလည်းပဲလိုက်ပြီးတော့သင်ဖို့တတ်တာဒါတဘာဝမှာသင်ရပါအဲ့လိုသင်ဖို့ကြလို့ရှိရင်တော့အရှင်းမမှတ်ပဲနဲ့ကမထားရဘူးဒါတော့ဘုရားပြောခဲ့တဲ့အတိုင်းစိတ်အားဖြည့်ပြီးတော့ကလလအရာဝတ္ထုကိုတိုးကြည့်လို့အဲ့လိုမှတ်ပါအဲ့ဒီလိုလုပ်ပါ
If you can note the two objects rising, falling only, and if there are no gaps in between rising, falling, please carry on noting rising, falling only. When you note this way, if concentration becomes substantially strong, you can develop insight. When this happens, the main object becomes subtle. For example, those who are noting the Adapana way, in breathing, out breathing, this breathing process will become subtle. And rising, falling, which is connected with in breathing, out breathing, will become subtle also. This is the nature. If this happens, one should not stay without noting at all. One must not let go of the noting. Like Sayadaw said a few minutes ago, during times like this, you have to increase your mental energy. Like when you look at an object from a distance, you cannot see it, so you have to go nearer to the object to be able to see the object clearly.
သုတ်ရှိတဲ့တတ္တဝါတွေအသက်ရှိတဲ့အခါပြည့်နေတဲ့အခါမှာအသက်ရှိအလုံးပြည့်မှာအနည်းအမြင့်တက်တဲ့အခါမှာအသက်ရှိပြည့်တယ်ရိုးသွားတဲ့အခါမှာအသက်ရှိပြည့်တဲ့အခါတော့မပြည့်ဆောင်ပြည့်သွားတဲ့အခါဆိုပုံပြီးတော့သက်ရှိတော့ပြည့်တတ်ပါသ သွားနေတဲ့ကတက်ရှိဝင်နဲ့ထိုင်နေတဲ့ကတက်ရှိဝင်ကိုတူတယ်တက်ရှိကစိတ်ရလှရှားမှုကပြီးပြီးတော့တက်ရှိအကျဉ်းအပြောက်အကျဉ်းအမှုပတ်ထားပါတယ်တရားထုတ်တဲ့ယောဂီပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တွေအတုထမှာဒီဝိညာဉ်တရားတွေကိုကျင့်နေတော့အသက်ရှိကျင့်လို့ခံစားရတာပါနည်းနည်းသူမြင်သွားလို့ဟောလေးရတာကိုရှင်းပြီးသူကဒီလိုဒီလိုသိရလို့ရှင်းလာတဲ့ကောင်စိတ်ကိုသိလို့ကိုယ်တစ်ပိုင်းသိရနေသူကြကြဖြစ်သွားတဲ့ဆံအသက်လုံးဝမရှိဘူးလို့ဆိုတာဒီတော့ယောဂီကကိုဖတ်ဖို့ကိုအာယုံကြည့်ကြည့်မှတ်ဖို့သိဖို့ဒီအာယုံလေးဘယ်လိုသိလို့သွားလဲဆိုတာပြောပြကိုယ်အားဆရာဒီတက်တာသိရဒီတော့မှကိုယ်အားဆရာဒီတော့သိကြည့်လို့ပြရ
The beings who have lungs, when they run, the breathing becomes very hard. When they are walking about in a normal manner, breathing is not so hard. When they are running, it becomes very strong. In other words, while one is sitting, while one is going about, the breathing are not the same. The breathing will depend on the activity of the mind also. Therefore, the breathing can be divided in many ways due to the prevailing condition. The extreme form of breathing or subtle form of breathing, a gross form of breathing and soft form of breathing. The beginner yogis who are not free from nivaranas or hindrances, their breathing is hard. When the yogi gains concentration, the breathing becomes little subtle. And when the yogi develops insight, breathings become very subtle. At matured wisdom or with matured insight, yogi can stay even without breathing. But whatever it is, yogi must report to the meditation teacher how he knows the object. If we can know the object properly, what does he come to know? Only when the yogi reports to the meditation teacher like that, the teacher will be in a position to give corrective measures.
အဲ့ဒီမှလည်းဘုံကိုပြန်ပုံလာတာဒါကြောင့်သူတို့ကအဝေးရောက်နေလို့ခံစားရပါတယ်သူတို့ကိုရှုလို့ကြွရတာအားလို့ဆက်ရတာလေဆိုတော့အဝေးရောက်နေတဲ့အနိကနေတဲ့ဒါမျိုးဘုရားပြီးသားမှုကကြီးကြီးတယ်အနိကနေတဲ့ပြီးသားနေတဲ့ဘာအဝေးရောက်နေတယ်ဒါလည်းပြီးသားလို့ဆိုရင်လိုက်ပါပြီးသားရဲ့အာတိမှာဆိုတော့အတ္တရပါတယ်ဒါမှမှအတ္တရပြီးသားရဲ့သူဘုရားအတူတူဒါကြောင့်စိတ်ချိန်လာကြိုက်ဘူးအာမတန်လာတော့ဒါပဲအာမတန်ကိုနောက်တော့ချိန်လာကြိုက်တရားတိုက်လို့မှလို့အတ္တလာတယ်ဒီလိုဆိုတာအဲ့ဒီဖြစ်တဲ့အတွက်ခိုင်ကြည့်မှရမှာခိုင်ကြည့်ကြောင်းမှမဟုတ်ဘူးဘုရားဟာအတ္တကိုအသိပါ
So yogi said, I found when noting, sitting, touching, when rising start again, it seems very far and I need more effort to observe the rising falling. This is true. You have to put more effort when the object is not clear. So whenever the object is not clear, you have to increase your mental energy. And he says, so I thought maybe my focus was not strong enough. So at the beginning, the focusing will not be strong. But as you keep on aiming and focusing, this focusing ability will become strong later. Now he said, instead of noting rising falling, he noted sitting touching. When rising falling is not clear. Yes?
Instead of noticing and touching, I focus on the
သူပြောတာသူဆိုလိုချင်တာဒီဖောင်းထိုင်ကြီးကိုမှတ်မဲ့အစားသူစိတ်ကိုဘိုက်ပေါ်မှာထားပါတယ်လို့ပြောတာပါလို့
ဒါကလည်းဟိုနေ့နေသိရှိတာဟိုနေ့
Therefore your question is very strong. Your question is not straight to the point. So what Shadow is telling is, now if the object is not clear, you must not leave that object and go to note another object. What Shadow means here is, you must put more effort so that you will be in a situation to know the object which is not clear. So in the previous question, the middle part of the question, you said rising falling is in the distance. So this rising falling in a distance or near is not so important. What you have to say is whether you can know the object or you cannot know the object. Now, the noting of the object that arises is like doing research on oneself. Now when we note rising falling, it is like we are doing research so that we will know what is rising, what is falling. When there is rising, what happens? When there is falling, what happens? Whether the rising falling is fast, slow, or do our noting mind and the rising falling coincide? Or does the rising falling become subtle in a slow manner? So we have to do all this research work. Now if the rising falling becomes very subtle, we increase our mental energy. In spite of increased energy, if we do not see rising falling, then leave the rising falling. Because even if we increase the energy, we cannot see rising falling. In other words, there is no rising falling at all. But if there is still rising falling, we have to know them. If they are subtle, we have to increase our energy. If the rising falling is close to the object, we keep on noting rising, falling. Then only we will be like a person who is really doing the research work. That is why when we note the rising, falling, we must note so that we do not lose track of the rising, falling.
What has an interview? Set a record for you. Niyama Lankin is really picked up. I will forget the other calendar like yours. Rana, I will forget the other calendar. I will forget the other calendar. Have you achieved a time of Rana, Ponky, Jumadeka? And Nika in Nagasia capital, like the Padana. I must look your work. The duty of the singer. These are mere kind of chemical money. See this such a feeding me. Find my 9 money. The yogi yet, she must be swine me. Malada, see such a money. Swine me like yogi of money never came out. Mananga, Baga, see them yet, lower house. My name is on your phone, body. What will you do? Home of the see out the other, down one, 10 one, low one, who one, and way one. Money by even no one of you. That is a new fatality. In a video, I'm not lawyer. Anything they will follow young in an animal. You don't kill over the other, any guy in the eye, the idea and other. No, so I am a man like that. Then I am a man, I don't think that one. Don't know what I will not want. A man like that. Then I am a man, you want to think that. A cool boy, if you had a Latin and then don't play up and out. A man like that, kitten, killer. Take better, and I kitten. My people, my poor people. Who like it, come on, not to reach to a two level, standing at that, don't need to go. So they think they had it. Ever they come, I did 20, don't move, stand one a year, now, who my money. Many of them. My kitten, my people, taking it. Anything they tell me, they love them, me, never me. No problem.
We have some sort of sayings which will make it easy for the yogi to report during the interview. Now in Burmese, there are 4 sort of standards. The first standard is you are asked to note the object with aiming and focusing. That means please note the object when it arises with aiming and focusing. The second stanza is we start with the main object, rising, falling. Second stanza is you should report to the teacher whether you can note the object rising, falling closely with aiming and focusing, or if you cannot note with aiming and focusing. The third standard, you are asked to tell your teacher whether you can note persistently, consistently. 3, if you say you can know the object, you have to tell him everything that you come to know. Now, if you can note an object, you will come to know a lot of things about the object. For example, if you can note rising falling, you can be aware of the form of your belly, or you can be aware of the manner of rising falling, or you can experience stiffness, tension, tightness, heat, movement, etc. But during the interviews, Seattle has found the weakness in yogi who can report properly.